Hello and welcome to Hollywood at Home from Arizona Public Media. I'm Victoria Lucas. Perhaps no film has a more appropriate title than the one we're screening tonight. It's Warner Brothers' 1956 production of Giant. Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor, and James Dean star in this provocative big-screen epic that captures Texas in all its glory, contrasting the vast sweep and eternal hardness of the land against passion-charged, ever-changing human relationships. Producer-director George Stevens based the film on Edna Ferber's sprawling novel centered around a wealthy Texas rancher, his newly arrived East Coast wife, and a surly ranch hand with big ideas. We follow their story from the 1920s to the 1950s, when oil begins to replace cattle as the most profitable business in the state, throwing ranchers, oil tycoons, and poor immigrants into open competition as they fight for their chance at the American dream. Themes of greed, racism, vengeance, and basic human rights are tackled with top-notch writing, directing, and breathtaking performances. Edna Ferber's best-selling novel had attracted a lot of attention in Hollywood, and multiple studios made offers for the film rights. But Ferber decided on producer-director George Stevens because he promised to stick closely to the book. And while he didn't do exactly that, after all, how do you compress a 400-page novel into a 3-hour movie? He did enlist Ferber to do a rewrite on the screenplay, and he included her in major production decisions. As you might guess, casting actors for a film that spans 25 years created challenges for the production. Director Stevens surprised many in Hollywood with his decision to cast young actors for the roles, feeling it would be easier to use makeup and other tricks to age them for the camera, rather than attempting to take 30 years off older actors for early scenes. A great many top stars were interested in the role of the rugged Texas rancher, including Gary Cooper and William Holden. But Stevens chose up-and-coming actor Rock Hudson, then 28, after seeing his performance as a gunfighter who ages 30 years in The Lawless Breed. For the role of the new wife, Stevens had originally thought of Audrey Hepburn, but 23-year-old Elizabeth Taylor had co-starred for Stevens in A Place in the Sun, and she pushed him hard for the role in Giant. He recognized her potential as a serious dramatic actress, who would, by the way, be nominated for 5 Oscars over the next decade, so he offered her the part. Meanwhile, 23-year-old James Dean had just finished filming Rebel Without a Cause on the Warner Brothers lot, and Hollywood insiders were betting he would be a major star. Stevens watched the dailies from Rebel and was impressed by Dean's performance, so he quickly signed the young actor before anyone else could grab him. The director then populated the supporting cast with other promising young actors, including Carol Baker, Mercedes McCambridge, Dennis Hopper, Sal Mineo, and Rod Taylor. Stevens was determined to make the film as authentic as possible. And one important consideration was getting the Texas accent and rhythm of speaking exactly right. Many Hollywood movies made no distinction among the regional variation of Southern accents, so he hired young Bob Hinkle, an authentic West Texas rodeo cowboy who had come to Hollywood to be a stuntman, to be the dialogue coach. Hinkle worked with the actors both before and during production to help them develop a realistic Texas twang. Stevens also stayed closely involved in the production design for the movie. When art director Boris Levin showed Stevens the sketch of the imposing Victorian-style mansion on the otherwise empty Texas plain, the director embraced him, saying, "This is the best damn thing that could happen to this picture." The facade of the large mansion, measuring 83 feet across with a tower reaching 64 feet high, was built by the Warner Brothers construction department, then shipped by rail in several pieces to the Texas location, where it was assembled, supported by telephone poles. A later shipment brought full-sized oil derricks, also built at the studio, then transported to Texas. While all this was happening, the company filmed interior scenes on studio sound stages for a few weeks until in June 1955, they moved to location in tiny Marfa, Texas. George Stevens had chosen Marfa for a variety of reasons. For one thing, despite its small size, the town had a large hotel where cast and crew could stay in one place. Also, it was located right on the cross-country Southern Pacific Railroad line, so people and equipment could be transported easily from Los Angeles. Third, there was a movie theater right across the street from the hotel, which would be convenient for screening dailies. Finally, and here's a little Hollywood secret, it was such an obscure location that Stevens would be saved from too many visits by supervising, which means interfering, studio executives. Add in the visual aspects of the spectacular terrain and a majestic sky, and Stevens considered it the perfect place to film. But the location shoot was difficult for both cast and crew. Temperatures in Texas that summer soared as high as 120 degrees. Elizabeth Taylor remembered, hot? It was boiling hot. But we were a tight-knit family, and once we had finally cooled down from filming, we managed to have fun anyway by going together to the movies or to the cafe. The townspeople were nice to us, too, though to them, we movie people were like real Martians. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't the only thing heating up on the set. James Dean and director George Stevens quickly began to butt heads. Stevens loved to shoot a scene from every conceivable angle, which Dean referred to as around-the-clock filming. But Dean's method acting technique was emotionally intense, and he felt his performance suffered from multiple takes. He started misbehaving on the set, being disrespectful of the director, and once even disappearing from the location for 2 days. Star Rock Hudson had a hard time hiding his dislike of what he saw as the younger actor's unprofessional behavior, but he had to admire Dean's acting. As he said later, James Dean had his own absolute style, which he could not change. You had to go along with him. He couldn't go along with you. In the end, it was Elizabeth Taylor who helped hold the production together. She befriended Dean, and he often sat with her long into the night, venting his frustrations with his life as an actor. She was a sympathetic listener, and Dean trusted her. She also became very close with Rock Hudson, a friendship that lasted until his death in 1985. In the same interview, Hudson said of Taylor, "She's an earth mother. She cares for everyone and everything. She bleeds for people." On September 27th, 1955, the day he finished his last scene in the picture, James Dean had a powerful new Porsche sports car delivered to the set. Just 3 days later, he was killed in a highway accident while driving the car to a California road race. Thus, Giant became the final film of his all-too-brief career. Giant was a huge box office success, and it remained the highest-grossing Warner Brothers film for the next 20 years. It was nominated for a total of 10 Oscars, including Best Picture, Director, Actor for both Rock Hudson and posthumously James Dean, Best Supporting Actress for McCambridge, Best Screenplay, Art Direction, Costumes, Editing, and Musical Score. So now please sit back and enjoy Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor, and James Dean in an epic story about family, power, ambition, jealousy, betrayal, and believing in your dreams. From 1956, it's director George Stevens' Giant.